Hello and welcome to Renew, the show about the College of Forest Resources at Mississippi State University. The College of Forest Resources promotes and enables the conservation, management, and wise use of our natural resources. I'm your host, Leslie Berger. Today's show will feature the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Aquaculture within the College of Forest Resources. Here to represent that unit is graduate student Dan Marina. Thank you for joining us today, Dan.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit how you came to be here at Mississippi State and in this career field.
Well, I actually started out different from most students, and I was out in the construction industry for about 7 years doing construction management, and then decided to go back to school. And I knew I loved wildlife and the outdoors, and so I went back for wildlife at NC State University in North Carolina, and then applied to grad school here with Dr. Damaris. Dr. Steve Damaris, looking at the deer position, and I've been here doing my master's research ever since.
Wow, okay, so tell me a little bit about that master's research that you're doing.
So my project, we're doing deer, looking at female choice in deer, and so it's something that's really not been evaluated very thoroughly, just because there's a lot of competition between males, and it can kind of stifle any evidence of female choice in white-tailed deer. So we have a controlled facility here at Mississippi State where we're actually able to manipulate things that you can't do in natural populations.
Right.
And so if you see, there's a picture we should be showing as well that shows some antler attachment.
Right.
So we actually, in order to evaluate female choice in white-tailed deer, you have to be able to manipulate antler size.
Right.
And so in order to manipulate antler size, it's never really been done before. It's been attempted, but we came up with a way to do it.
Right.
And so
in this picture you're showing right here,
yes,
that's part of that process to manipulate antler size.
Yeah, this is the anesthetization of some of the deer that we have in order to actually manipulate antler size. And then if you show the next picture, that's actually us attaching antlers. And so we actually have a video that we'll show, and it'll show the whole process of how we actually manipulate that antler size. So if you see, we start by cutting off the antlers. We have to remove the antlers and just leave just enough of the base for us to attach these antler couplers to. And then we screw in the base coupling that goes on to that piece of antler that we leave.
Right.
And then we take the upper coupling, which we have already attached to whatever antler size we want, and we put it down on that coupler, and it kind of puts it together, and it really fastens it tight so that we can have these deer wearing whatever size antler we need, so that we can actually isolate antler size. So we'll have two males that are the same body size and the same age, but now we can have one with large antlers and one with small antlers, and present them to females to choose from.
Okay, so this would be an example then of the coupler units that you put on there.
Yes, this is an actual large antler that we used in the trials, and you can see this is the base coupler and the upper coupling that's already pre-attached to the antler itself, and we just, this gets attached to the head, slide the upper coupling down and put some screws in it, and now he's got a new set of antlers.
Right.
And so what we found through this study was that females did in fact choose males with larger antlers over smaller antlers a significant amount of the time, and this makes sense because it should matter to a female who she allows to breed her. By breeding more like larger males, which is typically a signal for higher genetic quality, and so it will help her fitness later on if her offspring get that larger antler trait and then have higher reproductive success as well.
Well, that makes sense because this is very energetically costly to a deer, and there's also some just hazards to wearing this, so there ought to be some benefit that deer acquires. Otherwise, just go for the small model.
Exactly.
Okay. So where do you see yourself going next?
Well, actually, I'll be finishing up my master's research here with Dr. Damaris in December, and I've accepted a PhD position up in University of Montana, where I'll be looking at resource selection of elk in the North Dakota, Theodore Roosevelt National Park in the southwest North Dakota.
Wow, that's fascinating. So after you finish that PhD, what do you see yourself doing?
I would like to work in extension, potentially, an extension specialist for either a state agency or work as a research biologist. Some states actually have research biologists that get to continue research as well as work on management for the deer and for the species in their state. So.
Right. So we just have a little bit of time left, but is there any any implications of this kind of research for how we would manage, say, hunting regulations?
This research actually doesn't have many management implications. It's more of a cool ecological question that we get to ask. And so Mississippi State
Research for how we would
been more focused in the past on management. So now we're actually getting into more of the ecological questions and trying to be a
great.
leader in ecological research as
Right.
well here.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about the deer program when we come back from our break. Graduate student Jordan Youngman will be here to tell us about some of the research that he's been doing at Mississippi State. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We all depend on accurate weather forecasts to plan our day. That's why Mississippi State University is teaching students to forecast the future using real-world news sets as classrooms, putting scientific discoveries in meteorology to the test, while honing on-air reporting skills real-time with local TV stations. And we do it so well that at any given moment across the country, 1 in 3 weather forecasts are being delivered by MSU-trained meteorologists who are helping people make crucial decisions that impact their safety, working to ensure business continuity, and in many cases, saving lives. Predicting the future? That's what we're preparing for every single day so that you can prepare for your day. Discovery. It tells our history and determines our future. At Mississippi State University, we're digging deep, unlocking an understanding of our past, validating it. Middle East exploration by faculty and students is uncovering evidence that unravels ancient mysteries. Scholars have long thought of the biblical kings David and Solomon as mythological figures. Our research offers evidence that supports their existence, boosting MSU into an international league of experts on archaeology. Now we're changing the way people think about the past, opening up new possibilities of understanding for future generations. Digging deeper, learning more.
Welcome back to Renew. Joining me now is Jordan Youngman, a graduate student in the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Aquaculture in the College of Forest Resources. Welcome to the show, Jordan.
Morning.
So to repeat what we learned from your predecessor, Dan, how did you end up here at Mississippi State?
So I kind of have a similar circuitous path to this field as Dan does. I got a degree in my undergrad in biology and environmental studies, and I actually spent a couple years doing environmental science education, working with 8th, 9th, middle school age children doing stream monitoring, water quality stuff. I grew up a big hunter. I love the outdoors. I always knew I wanted to be in wildlife. And so after I finished up my job working as an educator, I got back into this field, and it took taking some field courses to gain some skills and a couple technician positions. I worked for the Minnesota State DNR before I finally ended up getting in this position.
Very good. So what are you doing now here at Mississippi State?
So I am using genetics to look at the restoration effects on white-tailed deer. So for those of you who don't know, deer populations were actually fairly low by the 1900s. And so to deal with that problem, state agencies took deer where they could. They took it from state populations, but oftentimes there weren't deer to be had, and so they went outside state, brought deer, and restocked deer populations. And this happened across the entire Southeast. And as you can imagine, this could potentially have some genetic effects where you're mixing a bunch of different deer from different places. And so we're looking at those genetic effects, and we're specifically looking at the question, there's an urban legend out there, some might be familiar with it, but it's the Wisconsin blue buck effect. It's this idea that there are these big Wisconsin deer still down here in the Southeast. They were brought in the 50s, and when a hunter shoots a big slate gray buck, they might say it's a Wisconsin blue buck. And we're looking at genetics to see if we can tell if those deer are still down here. And by and large, we haven't found any evidence that they're still here. We found evidence that native remnant populations have naturally regrown over time, and some evidence that other southern populations use for stocking, for instance, North Carolina populations potentially did fairly well when they were brought to Mississippi and Alabama, but we don't have a whole lot of evidence of northern lineages down here.
So that would sort of imply that they just didn't quite make it.
They didn't make it. You think about the
habitat.
long, arduous journey in a stock car coming down
Right.
here for stocking. That's a
Right.
lot of stress. And you think of things like EHD, which is a disease that we have down here in the southeast, but they do not have in the north. And
Right.
so we suspect after 1 or 2 years, those deer brought from the north
Just
died
didn't make
off.
it. Right. We have some pictures that show you doing some of your work. We're going to show those, and if
Okay.
you would explain just a little bit how that
Yep.
how that ties in.
Yeah. So these are pretty exciting pictures of me standing at a lab bench pipetting. Right here what we're doing is we're extracting DNA. The samples that we used by and large were actually from hunter harvested deer, and we took the tip of the tongue off of those deer. Each deer has one tongue, and so there was no way of getting more than one sample from one deer.
Correct.
And you have to go through a process of taking that tongue and extracting the DNA from it, so then you can then amplify the DNA and genotype it. So right now at Mississippi State, this picture I was extracting DNA, and then I actually took my samples to Texas A&M Kingsville, working with Randy DeYoung there, and that's where I did my amplification and my genotyping.
Right. So the genotyping allows you to then to compare what you're seeing from those Mississippi deer, that DNA looks like, to populations of other deer from other regions, and be able to say these are closely related or these are not related at all. And
Yes,
by
ma'am.
that you can be able to determine lineage, kind of like we do with paternity testing.
Similar,
only in
yeah.
a
Yeah, same
different
kind of
state.
idea that you have genetic variation in the population, and one population has a certain set of variation, and another population might have a different set of
Right.
variation, and how much those overlap can tell us how closely they are related.
Right, to them related. Okay, so where do you see yourself taking your future?
Well, so I actually, come next summer, we'll be going to the University of Georgia. I have a PhD project lined up. I'll be looking at using DNA, again, using genetics, looking at coyote populations in South Carolina.
good.
So that will be a couple years still.
Right.
Yeah.
So some might say your biology background may not have been the best place, but for you, that sound foundation in biology actually prepared you for the master's and PhD work that you're doing.
It did, and honest truth, I didn't do great in genetics and biology, and if there's a life lesson to be had for anybody getting into this career is work hard at your undergrad, take what you can, and
Right.
you never know where you might end up, and those classes that you struggled with might
Right.
be what ends up making your career.
Yes,
So
right. Well, that's probably just a good life lesson
it is.
in
It's
general.
a good one to take away.
So that's your words to advice to the next generation. I appreciate your time that you spent with us here. And I want to thank the rest of you for joining us here on Renew. I hope you've learned a little bit more about the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Aquaculture and the white-tailed deer program that's been going on for many generations under the leadership of Dr. Steve Damaris. And we have 2 generations of graduate students right here. So I appreciate Dan and Jordan stopping by, and I hope that you will come back again and join us on Renew. Thank you.